Hello guys, so welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to go into chapter 13, homeostasis and the human urinary system. Okay, for this lesson it will be on 13.1, which is on homeostasis. So homeostasis is something that you have learned in your Form 1, I believe, science Form 1 or Form 2. Okay, so you know roughly what is homeostasis, okay, the balancing, okay, internal, external environment and all that. Okay, so yeah, get ready with your pen and paper and let's do this. Okay, let's look at the learning standards. Okay, so for the first one is to be able to explain the meaning of homeostasis. So what is homeostasis? You will need to tell the definition of homeostasis. Okay, and then justify the necessity to maintain physical and chemical factors in the internal environment. Okay, internal environment, the body. Okay, and then describe the involvement of various organ systems in maintaining an optimal internal environment. Okay, how to maintain body temperature, maintaining the blood glucose level. So there are various systems that works together: excretory system, respiratory system, circulatory system. So it depends. Okay, so you have to talk about the involvement of this system in maintaining the optimal internal environment. Okay, and apply the knowledge of homeostasis in the concept of regulation of body temperature, blood sugar level, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, and also blood pressure. So there are four things that you need to know of. Okay, the regulation of these four different concepts. Okay. Okay, there is this quiz that you can test yourself with. Okay, your prior knowledge on homeostasis, the knowledge that you have learned in your science subject in Form 1 or Form 2. And let's see if you still remember a little bit on that. Okay, I'll put the link in the description box below. Test it out and then come back to learn further. Okay. Okay, so living systems are seen to be an open system, correct? So what does this mean? Okay, it means that we require a continuous exchange of matter between the environment and themselves, okay, the living organism. We need to balance it up. Okay, for example, we take in oxygen, food, water, okay, then we release out carbon dioxide, heat, urea. Okay, so we are actually complex systems of chemical processes, okay, which requires actually self-regulating, okay, to maintain a steady state, even if the external environment is changing. Okay, and this is actually to ensure that cell activity continues to function at an optimum level. Okay, so this maintenance, okay, of this constant environment in the body, okay, this is known as homeostasis. All right. Now, what is homeostasis? Okay, homeostasis is the regulation of physical and chemical factors of the internal environment within normal ranges for the cell to function in optimum conditions. Okay, so body internal environment is actually influenced by physical factors, okay, and chemical factors. So physical factors are such as body temperature, blood pressure, and osmotic pressure. And chemical factors is more like a blood sugar level and partial pressure of carbon dioxide, okay, which we are going to see the regulation of all these. So homeostasis uses negative feedback mechanism, okay, to return the changes back to normal. Okay, so this feedback loop consists of a sequence of events to produce an opposite effect to the changes that takes place in order to return to the condition, return the condition to normal. Okay, so homeostasis actually involves, okay, a normal condition, a stimulus. All right, stimulus means the change in the internal environment. Okay, for example, a temperature, blood pressure, or so on. And then there is receptors. Receptors are sensory cells or organs that detect the stimuli, the changes. Okay, then there is a corrective mechanism. Okay, the reaction that has to occur in the body to actually return the internal environment to normal, and there is a negative feedback to receptor. Okay, the signals to receptor that the normal condition of the internal environment has been restored. Okay, so everything back to normal. So let's say the body temperature increases, it has to be regulated back to normal. If the blood pressure decreases, it has to be back carried back into a normal range. So that is the regulation that involves this negative feedback mechanism. Okay. Look at the organ system involved in maintaining an optimal internal environment. Okay, so the organ system involves are that for body temperature, to maintain body temperature, we have nervous system, endocrine system, integumentary system, the skin, okay, and muscular system that works together to maintain the body temperature. So, and there is the 5 other systems: nervous system, endocrine, integumentary, muscular, and blood circulatory system, which involves in maintaining or regulating the blood sugar level. Okay, we have the nervous system, blood circulatory system, skeletal system, and respiratory system, which maintains or regulate the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Okay, and the nervous system, circulatory system, and muscular system, they actually help in regulating the blood pressure. So normal blood pressure is around 120/80, okay, millimeter per mercury. Okay, now all this is very necessary, okay, for us to maintain and regulate the body temperature. Now, if body temperature drops too low meaning below 32 degrees Celsius, so the individual risk death, okay, due to hypothermia. Okay, and if the body temperature is too high, then too high meaning more than 37 degrees Celsius, then the individual risk death due to hypothermia. So for blood temperature, we have hypothermia and hypothermia. Okay, so hypothermia if less than 32, and hypothermia means more than 37 degrees Celsius. Okay, now blood sugar level or glucose level, we call it. Now, low glucose level causes hypoglycemia. Okay, and high glucose level causes diabetes. Okay, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Let's look at partial pressure. Now, high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, that means more carbon dioxide, causes respiratory acidosis, which is low blood pH, acidic. High partial pressure carbon dioxide, acidic. Okay, blood becomes acidic. And low partial pressure of carbon dioxide causes respiratory alkalosis, which is high blood pH. That means it's more alkaline. Okay, so this is not good also. So that's why we have to maintain the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Okay, blood pressure, high blood pressure, hypertension, okay, increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases. And low blood pressure, we call it as hypotension, causes weakness, fatigue, and dizziness. So all this. So that is why regulation of internal environment is very important. Okay, so maintaining body temperature at fixed range at 37 degrees Celsius is important. So that cell metabolism reaction that are catalyzed by enzymes occur at optimum levels. Okay, now temperature that is too high will denature enzyme, while temperatures that are too low will slow down the metabolic activity of the cell and prevent it from carrying out cell processes. Okay, now the main structures involved in the regulation of body temperatures are hypothalamus, thermoreceptors. Thermo means temperature, and receptors are receptors. Okay, smooth muscles of the arteriole, erector muscles of hair, sweat glands, adrenal gland, and also thyroid gland. Now, the hypothalamus receives input from the nerve impulses, okay, of the thermoreceptors in the skin, okay, and outside the surrounding temperature through afferent or sensory neurons. They also receive inputs from the receptors in the hypothalamus during the blood flow through the brain. Now, if the temperature of the skin differs from normal level, the thermoreceptors in the skin will send nerve impulses via afferent neurons to the control center in the hypothalamus, and at the same time the thermoreceptors in the hypothalamus will detect the temperature of the blood. Then the control center in the hypothalamus will send the impulses, okay, through efferent neurons to various effectors and okay, for physical and metabolism processes to return to the normal temperature. Okay, so here you see, so this is through afferent, or we call it a sensory neuron, okay, to the corrective mechanism by the brain and other organs involved, okay, and then they send back the impulses through the efferent, okay, efferent neuron, efferent, or we call it as motor neuron, okay, so that to actually decrease the body temperature, okay, to the effector. Okay, for example, if you are in a hot room, then you will get thirsty, or you will reduce your activity, things like that. Okay, so let's look at it. Now, let's say the body temperature rises. Okay, body temperatures rises above normal range. So what happens is that the thermoreceptors, okay, will detect the changes. Okay, thermoreceptors in the hypothalamus and also in the skin. Okay, then we have the pituitary gland here. Okay, then there is the regulation. Okay, it detected in the brain, the pituitary gland and all that. So what happens is that physical methods, erector muscles are less stimulated, so they do not constrict, and the fine hair will lower towards the skin, and then so this will cause a thin layer of air trapped between the fine hair, so heat can actually be released quickly. Then the skeletal muscles also relax and contract less, so the body does not shiver, okay, because the body temperature is high. Now, arterioles in the skin will dilate, vasodilation we call it, okay, to allow more blood to flow, okay, to the skin surface. Okay, and then there is also more heat loss to the external environment through radiation. Now, sweat glands are also stimulated to produce more sweat. Of course, we are feeling hot, so we produce more sweat, and so the heat is absorbed to evaporate the sweat, and this cools down the skin. So sweat cools down the skin. So when the skin is cooled down, what happens? Body temperature reduces. Also, there is also chemical methods. So what is this chemical method do? Okay, chemical methods through the glands. We have the adrenal gland and also the thyroid gland. So the adrenal gland are less stimulated to secrete adrenaline. Less stimulated, adrenaline. So when there is less adrenaline, so metabolic rate also will decrease. Okay, to reduce energy loss. And there is also thyroid gland. Okay, thyroid gland is not stimulated, okay, to the secretion of thyroxine. Okay, so thyroxine reduced, metabolic rate decreases, so no excess heat is generated. So that will actually bring down the body temperature back to normal if the temperature increases. Now, if the body temperature drops below normal range, or maybe you are in a cold room, so again, same thing, it will be detected by thermoreceptors in the hypothalamus and also in the skin. Okay, hypothalamus here, there is also pituitary gland involved. Okay, chemical method. Now, what happens is that the corrective mechanism is that erector muscles now, they are stimulated to contract. Okay, causing fine hair to stand erect. Okay, you can feel the skin hair all are erection. Okay, a thick layer of air will trap between the fine hairs, which act as an insulator to prevent loss of heat from the skin. We also have the skeletal muscle, which will contract and relax, so the body will shiver. Okay, so this generates heat. When you shiver, it generates heat, which in turn raises the body temperature because the constriction of the muscle requires energy. Okay, the arterioles, okay, involving the blood circulatory system, okay, in the skin will be stimulated, okay, to constrict. So now when the blood temperature reduces, or body temperature reduces, so the arterioles undergo vasoconstriction. Earlier, when the body temperature increases, it was vasodilation. Okay, so you have to remember that. Now, this results less blood flow to the surface of the skin and with that, less heat is lost to the external environment through radiation. And then we have the sweat gland also, which is not stimulated. So here, sweating does not happen. Sweating only happens when the body temperature increases. Alright, so chemical method. Okay, so pituitary gland, we have the pituitary gland, correct? So it will stimulate the adrenal gland to secrete more adrenaline. So when more adrenaline is secreted, it speeds up the conversion of glycogen to glucose and metabolic rate increases. So the oxidation of this glucose will actually release heat to warm the body. Okay, thyroid gland is also stimulated to secrete more thyroxine, okay, which will increase the metabolic rate. So more heat is generated for the body, so you don't feel cold. Okay, your body temperature is still regulated at 37 degrees Celsius. So this is the regulation of body temperature. Okay, now let's look at the regulation of blood sugar level. Now, normal blood sugar level or glucose level is regulated at about 90 milligram per 100 ml of blood, or in the range of 75 to 110 milligram per 100 ml of blood. Now, the important structures involved in the sugar level regulation of the blood are pancreas, heart, and also muscles. Okay, the flow is still the same. There is a stimulus. Okay, that means whether the glucose level increases after the meal or decreases. Then there is also receptors. Okay, we have the alpha cells and the beta cells in the pancreatic Langerhans. Okay, and then there is a corrective mechanism, and there is also effect that takes place to bring back the normal glucose level. Okay, so these Langerhans cells in the pancreas contain alpha cells, okay, that secretes glucagon, and beta cells that secrete insulin. So now if you look at the slide here, now if blood sugar level increases after a meal, for example, the beta cell will stimulate to secrete insulin. If the blood sugar level drops in between meals, then the alpha cells in the pancreatic Langerhans cells are stimulated to secrete glucagon. So this one you have to remember. Insulin when blood sugar level increase, glucagon is secreted when the blood sugar level drops. So this secretion will be continuously secreted, okay, into the bloodstream to regulate blood sugar levels through negative feedback mechanism. Okay, now if let's say the glucose level increases, okay, after a meal, so the beta cell secretes insulin, correct? So what happens at the corrective mechanism? So at the corrective mechanism, more insulin is secreted into the bloodstream. Okay, insulin is transported into the liver and muscles, and insulin stimulates the glucose uptake to the cells. Insulin also triggers the conversion of excess glucose into glycogen and then stored in the liver and muscle cells. So this will reduce the glucose level back to normal. Now, what happens if the glucose level decreases? Okay, when glucose level decreases, so the alpha cell secretes glucagon. Now, corrective mechanism is that more glucagon is secreted into the bloodstream. So this glucagon is transported to the liver and muscles. And this glucagon will stimulate the liver cell to convert the glycogen into glucose, the sugar. Okay, so, and also stimulate the conversion of amino acid to glucose. Now glucose is produced. So when glucose is produced, the blood glucose level increases. Okay, and then the normal, the blood sugar level will get back to normal. Alright. Now, failure in the production or secretion and intake of insulin by target cells can cause diabetes mellitus. Okay, the blood sugar levels of diabetic patient is usually high and unstable after a meal. So the patient also feels thirsty, tired, fatigued, and suffers weight loss. So diabetes mellitus can be controlled by insulin injection. Okay, pills and also pills that lower the blood sugar level and a proper diet. Okay, so so Malaysian innovation. Okay, scientists confirm that cinnamon can actually reduce or lower the blood sugar level. So we can try taking cinnamon if you have high sugar level. Okay, so this is the summary or the short notes that you can take note. Okay, regarding the blood glucose regulation in the body. So you can take note and then we move on to the next slide. Okay, there is also a video, okay, ICT 13.1, a video on regulating blood sugar levels in normal individuals and also diabetic patients. So I will put the link in the description box below, or if you have your textbook, you can just scan and watch the video from there. All right. Okay, let's look at the regulation of partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood. Now, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is in between 38 to 42 millimeter of mercury at normal level. Now, the main components in the regulation of partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood are the brain respiratory center, chemoreceptors, and also nervous system. Now, breathing is an involuntary action that is regulated by a respiratory control center in the medulla oblongata. Now, the same concept again. So, there is a normal blood pressure. Okay, we have stimulus, receptor, a corrective mechanism, and the effect to either increase or decrease the partial pressure of carbon dioxide back to normal. All right, now during vigorous, let's say during vigorous activity, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases because of cellular respiration. Now, the respiratory center actually consists of a group of cells in the medulla oblongata. Okay, it regulates the basal respiratory rhythm in humans. It sends nerve impulses to the intercostal muscles through efferent, or we call it as motor neuron, in order to regulate the intensity and frequency of muscular contraction and relaxation. Now, the chemoreceptors are the sensory receptors. Okay, chemoreceptors, they detect the chemical stimuli. And the central chemoreceptors are actually located in the medulla oblongata. Okay, and it detects the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood indirectly through the hydrogen ions in the blood plasma that enters the cerebrospinal fluid, which bathes the brain. Okay, bathes the brain. Now, hydrogen ions is actually formed from the breakdown of carbonic acid after carbon dioxide dissolves in the blood plasma. Okay, the peripheral chemoreceptors, it consists of carotid body it consists of a carotid body in carotid artery and aortic body in the arterial wall. Okay, if you can look at the picture here, you can see the carotid artery. Okay, carotid artery and the aortic body. Okay, carotid body. Alright, so they actually will detect changes in the blood pH levels. So the corrective mechanism, okay, if let's say the partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases, okay, what happens is that the respiratory centers will send the nerve impulses to the intercostal muscle, okay, and also the diaphragm muscles. Now, contraction and relaxation of the intercostal and diaphragm muscle becomes stronger and more frequent. So breathing rate and ventilation rate will also increase. Now, if partial pressure of carbon dioxide decreases, so the other way around happens, okay? So the respiratory centers will send impulses to the same thing, intercostal muscles and also the diaphragm muscles. But if the partial pressure of carbon dioxide decreases, the contraction and relaxation of the intercostal and diaphragm muscle will become the other way around, weaker and slower. So the breathing rate and the ventilation rate will decrease. So this will actually regulate back the partial pressure of carbon dioxide to normal. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at the blood pressure regulation mechanism. Now, the main components of the blood pressure regulation are the baroreceptors and the cardiovascular control center in the medulla oblongata, heart, and also artery. So, the same concept, we have a stimulus, whether the blood pressure increases or decreases. We have the receptors, which is the baroreceptors. The corrective mechanism, okay, what happens, and to give effect to reduce or to increase the blood pressure. Now, the baroreceptors, okay, are, or we call it as pressure receptors, okay, they are located in the aortic arc and the carotid body. Okay, we have the baroreceptors. Okay, and in the carotid artery and also at the aortic arc. Now, the carotid artery is the artery in the neck that supplies blood to the head. Okay, so these receptors detect the pressure of blood flowing through them and continuously send impulses to the cardiovascular control center in the medulla oblongata to regulate blood pressure. Now, the cardiovascular centers regulate the rate and strength of heartbeat as well as vasoconstriction and vasodilation of the artery. Now let's look at the corrective mechanism if the blood pressure increases. Now cardiovascular control center will send impulses to the heart, firstly to the heart, to decrease the contraction of cardiac muscles and also to reduce heartbeat rate. Okay, the impulses are also sent to the arteries to relax the smooth muscles and also increase the arterial diameter. Okay, artery diameter will increase, so we have that vasodilation occurring to reduce the resistance of blood flow. Okay, if the blood pressure decreases, it's the other way around. The cardiovascular control center will send impulses to the heart to increase the contraction of cardiac muscles and also increase the heartbeat rate. Okay, and also impulses are sent to the arteries to contract the smooth muscles and also to decrease the arterial diameter, vasoconstriction in this case, to increase the resistance of blood flow. Okay, so we have vasoconstriction and vasodilation happening to regulate the blood pressure back to normal. Okay, we have this noni fruit, okay, or scientific name is Morinda citrifolia, is believed to be able to lower the high blood pressure. This juice extracted from this fruit has been marketed on a large scale. So yeah. Okay, so we are done. Okay, so once you are done, please do formative practice 13.1. There are 4 questions here, 3 KBAT question or HOTS question we call it. So the first one, what is the meaning of homeostasis? This is like a 2 marks of question. Okay, so you just give the definition from the book and also explain how homeostasis happens. Okay, number 2, an employee had to work in hot conditions because the power supply in his office got cut off. Describe the response of effectors in regulating his body temperature. So look back at the regulation of body temperature and describe the flow. Now, a 40-year-old man was diagnosed by the doctor as unable to produce enough insulin. So this is related to blood glucose level. Describe what has happened to the man. Okay, and lastly, Ahmad has just finished a 100-meter sprint run. Explain how his blood pressure is lowered back to normal range. So try to do all this question. Okay, the answers will be given in the description box below. Once you are done, you can check your answers there. All right. Okay, so we are done. I will end my video here. I hope you are able to learn through this subtopic, and I'll see you in the next subtopic. Okay, thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Bye bye.